Greetings, I'm gonna try to make a long story short. So Vanilla Plus is a custom Vanilla WoW with additional features and content. It's up for a bit more than a year and a half, and in the past 2 months it literally peaked in population by around 300%. It increased from 300 people online to up to 1,400 sometimes. Now it's in a bit of a decline, but nothing special. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because there's a majority of people that don't know the most basic stuff around about this server. Type of that it's a cross faction. You can join with the opposite faction in your PvE efforts, but not in PvP efforts. Although you could join in PvP efforts in Gurbashi Arena, but what I was trying to say is that there are some things that people don't know, like the fact that you can join any battleground with commands, which means you can queue from anywhere in the world. You don't need to be at a quartermaster, which people don't know. You just need to type .ab, .vsg or .ac. Also, Ultra Quello is not out yet, but we have Ashara Crater, which is a custom-made battleground that was originally planned to be released in Manila, but it was not. So currently there are 3 battlegrounds to choose from, and there will be Ultra Quello as well as 4th battleground, and they plan on releasing arenas, which is awesome for Vanilla WoW and such a small world to have so many PvP options available aside from world PvP. But yeah, plenty of people are not aware of that option, and plenty of people are not aware that they can turn in their honor marks for gold. They could do it for more gold before, but scaling depending on level, you can get from less than 1 gold up to 5 gold for turning in 3 marks in front of battleground you have the marks for. And as I said, plenty of people don't know that because it's not written anywhere. And yeah, people started noticing it and they complain now that staff should invest more time and efforts in feedback mechanisms so that they can communicate with people and so that they could inform people better. For example, just the 2 things I just mentioned are almost not mentioned anywhere, and people that come to server don't know they exist. Continuing, you can turn 30 marks for flasks, so you can take alchemy flasks for your PvP efforts, which is nice. It used to be 10 marks, so now it's 30. 10 was very low requirement, 30 is too much, I would say, so 20 to 25 would be more realistic if you ask me, but yeah, you can get flasks for your PvP efforts. Dungeons are harder in general. For example, Zul'Gurub is not out yet, I meant to say Zul'Farrak is pretty much harder. You need a level 50 plus for sure just to pass through that. And they invented some custom items. For example, Gazrilla now drops the neck that gives you attack power and hit rating, which is awesome because Vanilla lacked hit rating items. They modified a lot of items accordingly to some common sense and logic. For example, Storm Shroud set has 4 parts, and from those 4 parts, 3 parts give stamina now, and on original Vanilla, only 1 part was giving stamina before. So I would say they balanced it out a bit so it's more useful, and you can calculate more with your build and mathematics. They added custom loot in Maraudan as well. It's a bit harder as well. You cannot just go and farm princess like a mindless person. I managed to duo the princess with my cousin, but it took us a lot of tries and calculating and strategy, but we managed to do it in the end. And I don't think many of people can do that, but it's possible, but it's way harder. And that little goblin guy in Maraudan now drops, for example, a trinket that's custom that gives you 5 spell damage, I think, and 1 hit chance for your spells, which is awesome because, as I said, vanilla lacked items like this. There's plenty of reworked items. There has been added a reputation for Dire Maul, for example. Dire Maul is also a 10-man dungeon now. It's not 5-man. It's not as easy as it used to be. What I forgot to mention is there are custom added Zeppelin paths and boat paths for Alliance. Alliance, I think, have a boat from wetlands to Feralis, and Horde have Zeppelin that leads in front of Orgrimmar right to Badlands, which is awesome. And they have a Zeppelin from Thousand Needles that leads actually to Gromgol Base Camp and Undercity, I think. And not sure. It's also important to mention that developers removed some flight paths, like in Searing Gorge. You can't fly to Searing Gorge neither as Alliance or Horde. Also, there is a boat that leads from Ratchet to Booty Bay. After Booty Bay, it goes to Tanaris in Steamdville Port. And from Steamdville Port, it goes to Ratchet, Booty Bay, Steamdville Port, Ratchet, Booty Bay. What's actually nice is that they implemented Tier 1 sets, not just one set per class, but multiple sets. Most of classes have 3 sets, but for example, Shamans, Druids, and hybrids like that have 4 sets. 1 is for Elemental, 1 is for Restoration, and 2 are for Enhancement, for example, in Shaman. So Shaman can tank as well, pretty much, it's balanced out. More or less, it doesn't matter if you're a Balance Druid, or if you're a Restoration Druid, or if you're a Feral Druid. In PvP and PvE, you are needed equally. It doesn't matter what spec you are. Because you have talents that help whole raid now. They modify the talents, so talents are modified. More or less it's awesome. Shamans can tank, Paladins can tank and be useful actually. Druids can tank, they can all heal, they can all DPS, it's awesome. So practically there is almost no spec that was useless in PvE in vanilla that is useless here. It's kind of nice. It's a work in progress, and with time it's gonna get polished as a system, so I am looking forward to it because the server should have a future. Scarlet Monastery, for example, as a dungeon or set of dungeons, is modified so that it's not available yet, but it will be as a level 60 zone, or as a level 60 raid, or as a level 60 dungeon, I have no idea, but it's gonna be available for level 60s actually. But yeah, since dungeons are harder, there is some way they are more rewarding as well. As I said, there's some custom content, some items are modified, some are added. Fun fact, when you get kicked out of instance and the timers comes from 60 seconds to 0, you go to a Hearthstone location, but your Hearthstone gets wasted. What I forgot to mention is the fact that you can be in queue for Battlegrounds and gain passive honor and passive badges, or should I say the marks of honor, for being in queue for some time, and not AFK, I think. Or AFK, doesn't matter, but yeah, you can get passive rewards for being in queue for Battleground for any bracket, and they lowered the requirement for you to participate in Battleground, so now it takes less people to start a Battleground, and even less people for Battleground to end prematurely. Which is awesome because there's every bracket of PvP that has life in it now. Regarding class changes, talent changes and stuff, well, I won't talk much about that because you can check it in other videos and get that information way faster. But there's a lot of changes and a lot of things are more fun and balanced, and interesting. For example, melee hunters are a thing. They're a thing in Manila too, but here they are actually useful. For example, if you're a shaman, you can go elemental, you can go resto, you can go enhancement. You can go enhancement and go on spell damage, you can go on elemental and mix it with the restoration tree. You have a lot of options, not to mention the fact that tier 1 gives you 4 sets to choose from, and it's awesome, it's really awesome. And regarding content that's not yet released, Molten Core and Onyx Lair are the only raids that are out yet, which I think is great actually, because you have really low gap between endgame gear and dungeons, which means people that casually play dungeons, they can actually have fun and being competitive against people that are in raid gear, because as I said, the gap between epic gear and rare gear is very low, so you have a lot of use from blue items, especially from blue items for lower level dungeons that give, for example, 1% hit crit and stuff like that. So you can benefit a lot from items that are a bit easier to get, but it's balanced out because then you lose another stats, and people that actually rated have advantage, but that advantage is not that huge. So I would say content is nice. You benefit a lot from playing dungeons and having blue gear that's craftable. Also, gap between craftable gear and endgame raid gear is also low, so you have actually some benefits from having crafted gear, and I think mathematically that's awesome, which people that like to chase carrots because they are not satisfied with their lives won't like as much, but yeah, the content is awesome so far, and as I said already 3 times, gap between green and blue gear and epics is not that big, which means it's pretty balanced still. Once Nextramus gets out, the gap will be huge, and it will take like 3 people to take 1 down. So Vanilla was more like fighting without gear and still being able to beat someone if you have the skill. So I think this is nice. But again, people that like to fight imaginary monsters for hours won't like it as much, so it's up to you to decide. And another reason why this is awesome, because you can take time, enjoy the content, go through it with some moderate pace, and as I said, really enjoy it without any rush to endgame content, just so you could get some overpowering gear that is creating a huge gap between you and someone who just hit fresh 60. So developers, please don't rush the content. Thank you. Oh yeah, and fall damage is buffed as fuck. You die easily.